Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome back to this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing. With me every week, as usual, is Big Jim Mack. How you doing today, Jim?
Tyson, I'm doing great. Excited to chat with you today and see what's been going on with you.
Not a lot, but isn't this year going fast? It is going so quick.
Yeah, absolutely. It just seemed like, like it was March or April recently, and now we're, the back half of the year, and it's going to be 2026 before we know it.
And I can't believe how quick we're getting up to almost episode 200. It's not far away.
I know it's kind of hard to believe we're closing in on 4 years of the podcast, which is like this year flying by. I don't know where the last 4 years have gone. So
Yeah, I know. It's gone longer than my first marriage. But I learned from that one. And the second marriage is over 27 years now. It's fantastic.
there you go. Congrats on that.
No. Anyway, so this is what I find interesting podcast. If you listen to a podcast long enough, you learn these little snippets about the hosts that you sort of go, see, some people wouldn't know I've been married once before.
There we go. I've
Yeah.
only had one wife, but yeah, that's just this little tidbit about me. So
Yeah. Well, it's the only one that we talk about. Anyway, I'm going to talk about your 52 children. So, what are we talking about today?
yeah, so today we're going to jump into a little bit about the changes that have happened over the course of the last 5-10 years with Google, right? We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but we're really going to dive in today about, how your clinic can thrive, or maybe the marketing person you're working with when Google changes the rules, because that's the only real constant with Google is change. Whether it's a new platform, whether it's the way they're kind of adjusting their current platforms, you really need to know what's going on here in order to make sure that your clinic is getting the adequate amount of visibility it needs to kind of show up on these different these different Google channels. Because although AI is all the rage and that's getting all the hype, still Google channels is kind of the main source of online referrals for people. So it's really, really important to know what's going on with Google, because you can't just expect what's going on if you looked it up like 3 to 5 years ago.
And it's constantly changing, isn't it? It's like every day, every week, they're making these little subtle changes, and then occasionally they'll make some bigger ones that all of a sudden you'll hear about on social media.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where, if you think about it 5 or 10 years ago when there's a bunch of blue links, it was pretty predictable. You're trying to rank as well as you can on Google search, and that's kind of what you wanted to do, right? So if a patient clicked and booked, that was a pretty straightforward way to be explained what was going on. And then also a lot of podiatrists are doing these things, themselves. But now you have things like AI overviews, things like local service ads, the map pack, and how that affects how people are clicking through, as far as looking at reviews. There's kind of a shrinking space when it comes to these organic results. So, in this episode, I really wanted to kind of talk about, the old way that things were working, and then kind of show you, kind of talk to people a little bit today about the new rules that have kind of changed the game and how your clinic can really stay visible, no matter, at least in 2025 here at the latter stages of 2025.
Okay, so what's the first one you want to touch on?
The first one I want to touch on is AI overviews. I think we touched on this on an episode not so long ago, but I think it's really worth bringing up because it's really changing the way that people are either clicking or not clicking to your website. Like we talked about, like I said, mentioned here previously, it used to be that the main goal of Google was to just send you traffic, just, people to click on links and show up on your website. And that would be where they would kind of make that final determination about whether you're trustworthy to make an appointment with. But you used to have to kind of write keyword focused pages, rank high, get clicks from patients, and then there you go. But now with these kind of AI answers, this is going to show up before the organic results. You're going to have a paragraph or 2 paragraphs that shows at the very, very top. It often gives patients kind of an answer to what they're looking for. So instead of going to your website to look for what plantar fasciitis is, or how to treat an ingrown toenail, maybe this AI overview is going to give them that information. So you have to be much more strategic about the type of content you're creating. Otherwise, you're just going to be kind of like almost battling Google to get those clicks. And 99 times out of 100, Google's going to win that battle.
Yeah, well, I must admit, I have used the AI overview so much, Reese. Even the last few weeks, I've used it more than I ever have before. I'll be searching for something. It'll have the overview at the front. Oh, and I read the first paragraph. Oh, this is actually what I was looking for. I click more information and I start reading that. And I'd actually say 9 times out of 10, I haven't searched anywhere else. I've got the answer that I was actually after. I didn't go any further.
Well, that's the problem. That's what they call these kind of
Yeah.
zero click searches, right? So there's no click after, they just see the AI overview. And so the game here is to really have great content on your site that answers patients' questions. Because if you're answering some of these queries or these questions that are putting into Google, you might be able to be one of the resources that Google pulls from. And they will generally link out in the Google overview, the AI overviews to those sites. But it definitely is decreasing the amount of traffic that's going directly to your blog, to your in diagnosis and treatment pages. But it's still important to have great content on your website so you can still show up there. And maybe, like I said, they'll be, they'll kind of give you some credit or give you a link back if you have one of the best answers and kind of the most patient friendly content.
Yeah, but this is really good, especially for podiatrists that are prepared to put some thought in and write a decent article or create some really good content instead of the lazy ones that may just be going to an AI program, go, hey, can you write me an article on heel pain? And they're whacking that on the website. So then AI overusers are looking through, probably looking at your website and go, well, you're not saying anything that we can't say. And you're not giving us any additional information that we can't just produce ourselves. So I think the podiatrists that are prepared to put the work in are going to benefit from this, and the lazy podiatrists will not get rewarded. They always said it was coming.
No, it's a great point. I think it is, how do you differentiate your content, right? I think sometimes it is just the quality of the writing, like you're talking about there, but maybe it is, like we talked about, Google Analytics is installed on the majority of websites across the internet. So Google knows what people want and what kind of pages they're staying on, right? So, whether it's having, better video content, like we talked about, maybe it's just a video, you talking about a procedure, kind of talking over things. Maybe it's you talking to camera, but something that's a bit more engaging to show Google that people are spending time and paying attention to your website is going to help differentiate you and hopefully get you more visibility than just, like you said, someone who's copy pasting into AI a very generic description of what plantar fasciitis is or something. There has to be, you know, engaging video or some other type of, personally written content to really separate yourself from this kind of generic, mass produced AI content.
Yeah, no, I'm all for this. I think it's great though. I think it's good to actually force you to create better content and not get lazy. And I think everyone thought they could just be lazy because of AI. And I've heard people say, "Oh wow, if I was at university now, it would have been so much easier because AI could be doing all this stuff for them." I'm thinking, I'm sort of glad we weren't. I'm glad we had to actually go and do the research ourselves to find answers to things.
If you're not like, I think the game now is to like who can create the most kind of customizable or most personalized kind of prompts that you put into AI. Obviously, you can write out all those things yourself, but there's ways to make your content be more personable, even if you are using, Chat GPT or Claude or something. But it takes a little bit extra time, and you want to make sure that, like I said, you're kind of talking to patients and kind of answering their questions. And that's really going to be the differentiator.
Okay, so what's the next thing?
So the next thing is like the way that Google search ads has changed over time. It used to be that, you'd have to go in there, you'd have to basically like write out the headline, all the copy in a search ad. There wouldn't really be, it'd kind of be up to you as far as how you're going to test it. Are you going to test three different types of ads? It was kind of a very manual process. And while it could deliver really good results, now things have changed in a way where Google search ads, especially when you're using kind of the more kind of higher level editor view, is that it's going to give you a lot of both good and a lot of bad suggestions. A lot of the bad suggestions come from, kind of, I would say more like generic terminology, podiatrist, maybe zip code, which, if that's the headline of your ad, it's not really that engaging to a human. Maybe from a robot or from a SEO perspective, that would make sense. But you need to make sure that, if you do Google ads yourself or you're working with someone that does Google ads, to make sure that you know which of Google's kind of recommendations to ignore and which ones you should really be aware of. Because sometimes it can save you a bit of time when you're trying to write out 180 characters, for that search ad. But you really need to be careful If you're trying to like advertise for things like podiatrist near me, or heel pain treatment, you really need to kind of talk to a very specific kind of demographic of patient, to make those Google ads kind of more successful. Because if you're just talking kind of generically about diagnosis and treatments, you're kind of letting Google run the show. You're going to get a lot of ad spend, but you're not get a lot of conversions or a lot of ROI
Mm.
on that ad spend.
But this comes back to the first point about creating really good, specific, detailed content that Google knows that's a good resource. So you're doing the same thing with your ads, is being a little bit more specific with what it is that you want.
No, absolutely. I think it's not only what's in the ad copy there, but does it relate and is there a good trade-off or a good handoff when someone were to click on that ad when they show up on that landing page, right? Is there a similar, similar photos or similar text? Does it kind of continue the promise of what the ad talked about? So if you say something like, same day podiatry appointments, but then you just have them land on your homepage and your homepage doesn't mention same day appointments or, 24-hour
I
follow-up appointments, someone's gonna feel like it was kind of a bait in the switch, right? But if you have a dedicated homepage that shows, okay, like we get most patients within 24 hours, if you have this kind of issue, maybe it's good to contact the emergency room if it's really an emergent thing. But like it's a good way to really kind of understand the kind of patient or the potential patient's intent and try to serve that in a way that the ad and that landing page both make sense together.
Yeah, well, even the podiatrist near me, when I get a report from Google every month, and I have a look at it just from my own website, but it'll say what search things have happened, which explains why I still get people calling me to make an appointment. And I don't have a podiatry clinic and haven't for 9 years, but I still get people ring me, say, "Oh, I've got this sore heel. I was wondering if you'd be able to fit me in." I go, "No, I can't, but I'll tell you where to go." Because they're putting in podiatrists near me. And because I still have a website that has the word podiatrist in it, I still come up, I'm still ranked really high just for
Your your
podiatrists in my area.
your marketing is just working too well even years after you've left practice.
I can set a clinic up in one of the rooms of the house here and I'll just have people coming over because it's just every week I'm getting phone calls. But I did, when I see the report and I see what people are searching for, I understand why I keep popping up all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that will misclick things too, right? They just see maybe it's Dr. Tyson Franklin there, and they just don't even read any other part of the ad or the website. They just click on it, and they automatically assume that maybe you're still in practice.
Yeah, and majority of I usually don't pick my phone up anyway. So if anyone's called me and I don't pick the phone up, just leave a voice message and I'll call you back. And that's
Okay,
why I don't pick it up because most of the time it's a patient trying to make an appointment. And if they listen to my voice message, then it usually they don't leave a message.
for
I'll
sure.
call somewhere else. So what's next?
So next is kind of something that wasn't available 3 to 5 years ago, and this is what we call local service ads, and they're really kind of taking up prime real estate in the search results these days. We talked about the traditional Google ads where people were typing podiatrist near me or bunion surgeon, and there was going to be a bunch of links. There was going to be kind of like they try to make the ads almost look like the organic section in a way. Because sometimes you're going to get that map pack, and that'll be great, but the very, very top now in a lot of locations, at least in North America, if you type, maybe like a podiatrist or bunion surgeon, you're going to get a square at the very top of the Google search results that looks much visually different than the rest of them. It'll say like either Google guaranteed or trusted by Google. And it'll basically be maybe a photo of the physician. Maybe it was like, bunion surgeon, their phone number. And this is almost like kind of a new form of lead generation that Google is doing to try to get people to click on those ads and basically make appointments for those very specific types of care. It's something you have to apply for. There's an application process, a business license is required, a medical license is required. So there's a lot more kind of red tape you have to go through in order to be there, but it is a way to um, show up at the very top of Google because the search ads are no longer always the top prime real estate these days.
Okay, so what should everyone be doing?
Yeah, so like I said, I think it's important to number one, experiment with this a little bit. So go through that process of getting verified by Google. But then I would say once you get verified and you maybe allocate a $500 a month budget, just get a general sense of like who's it bringing in, right? Obviously, maybe for the first few months you're doing it, maybe it's surgeries or higher paying types of care that you want to provide where you're there, because it definitely it's paid out a little bit differently, or you pay Google in a different way, where it's more like, it could be $20 to $30 for a call as opposed to like $6 for a click. And you want to make sure that this is not already an existing patient. So maybe doing over the last, for the first 3 months, getting a general sense of like who's calling in, make sure your
Yeah.
staff is ready for these types of ones, because if your phone rings like 5 or 6 times, Google notices that, and basically will kind of like ding clinics. They want, clinics that are open, picking up their phone quickly. So if you have like a phone answering service where it's like push 1 to do this, push 2 to do this, maybe it's not right for you. But if you have a human answering the phone, it can be a way to see whether it's worth that ROI. If you're only doing bunion surgery and you get 5 bunion surgeries from it, or forefoot surgeries that first month, maybe it's worth that, $20 to $30 per call. But you have to have your systems kind of in line before you decide to just kind of experiment with these local service ads.
Yeah, it does sound that way. So it's like anything though. It's the preparation you do behind the scenes before you implement something. It's not just, oh, we've heard about this and just dive on board, register and start doing it without a bit of planning in the background.
No, absolutely. You have to have your systems in line if you're going to spend, $500 or $1,000 on something. There's no reason to do it if you don't feel like you have confidence in your staff to, number one, answer the phone call in a reasonable time frame, but also make sure, 'cause I've heard some people have tried LSAs a bit, and one of the bigger drawbacks they thought is that they were getting people that were either already their patient, or they felt like would have, come to the clinic even without the local service ad. So it
Yeah.
can be a way, it's not a perfect solution, but I have definitely heard that people can, like I said, if you're trying to go after a niche type of patient, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult on, in Google search ads to stand out. But this local service ads, like I said, by its location and the way it looks visually, might be a way to kind of get more of those high revenue patients into the practice.
Okay. And I think it's like you said, it's the higher ticket items that you want to sort of be promoting this way because it costs you more money when people actually click on it. And
Absolutely.
also be aware that your competitors might keep clicking on it just to annoy you.
Google's gonna be better about that click spam stuff. So like
Yeah.
if someone's clicking the same thing multiple times, yeah, like Google's getting better about that. But yeah, like you'd have to be a little bit aware of that.
Okay. Next one.
The next is kind of like how SEO has changed in a way with Google. The Google Business Profile obviously has changed names in the last 3 to 5 years. It used to be called Google My Business. So I would say that if you talk to any marketer or marketing consultant that's still saying Google My Business, they might be stuck and their strategies might be 3 to 5 years old. I definitely find myself thinking it sometimes, but I always am able to kind of spit out Google Business Profile when I'm talking to folks. So just be aware that, SEO alone is, not necessarily going to get you where you want to go. This is like we talked about the 10 blue links. Now Google wants to keep people seeing ads. They want to keep people on their homepage. So, you really have to build out that Google Business Profile. So it almost looks like the branding of a little mini website
Mm.
on Google's platform, right? So you can get calls there. People can click to make an appointment. People can get directions there. Your services, the types of care you provide can all be on this Google Business Profile. So it's just another form of SEO that has kind of changed and shifted over time. It didn't used to be that important, to be honest, but over time, this Google Business Profile has become more and more important for clinics to take seriously. They have, great trustworthy photos on there, can really make a big difference when people are, shopping around. Obviously, reviews show up there as well. So you really need to have a well-rounded Google Business Profile to have a strong SEO presence now in your local area.
I use it a lot. Even this week, there's probably 3 or 4 times I've have a rough idea of the business or the service that I want. So I just type in what I'm after. I don't read the AI thing at the beginning because I know that's not what I don't want to review. I'm looking for actual businesses. But straight to the right-hand side, it'll have the business profile there. And I'll either use that to go to their website, or depending on what the service is that I'm after, because I know there's photos there, I'll click on the first photo. I might scroll through the first 5 or 6 photos and go, yeah, this has given me the feel that I want. I then go and look at the hours. I go, it's suiting the hours that I want. So it's giving me that information, and then bang, straight on the website. And I feel like I'm in the right place. And I've done that. Today's only Wednesday, and I reckon I've probably done it 4 times this week already.
Yeah, it's hugely important, right? That's kind of star rating or the number of if someone is posting weekly about, things going on in their clinic or, having fresh photos or having dark and dreary photos, it can make a real difference when it comes to, that kind of building that trust. And like you said, can do so much kind of background information and research about, okay, the hours, who is this doctor? What do they look like? Kind of what you can really understand a lot about that clinic from the Google profile. So, just one way that kind of Google is changing how SEO works and how local SEO with the map pack, we want to be as high as you can on that map pack, but also having a built out Google business profile is going to really, really affect you and your clinic's visibility.
Yeah, well, I have a little note in my Google Calendar, and every week it says update business profile. I go in there, I try to every week go in there and just, even if I'm just reviewing, I don't always add a new photo, but I will try and add something. I may have had an article I've written or a link to a video, might be a link to a podcast episode, but I'll try and put something on there just to keep reminding Google that I'm still alive. So if people are searching for me, I am there. But I've got to look at other podiatry clinics because I do that on a regular basis. And some of them will have 2 photos, and the 2 photos are not doing them any favors. They really need to go and look at it.
Yeah, just need to take those professional photos from your website or, from some of your marketing and put it in there. And like you said, just showing the Google that you're, either putting photos in or you're putting these Google posts out shows that like you're making an effort on their platform. And if someone's making an effort on their platform, it only makes sense that they would reward those folks. So it's definitely worth the time.
And I like it how Google does send you reminders to say, are your hours changing? Do you need to update your hours? And I think it's important too, if you know there's public holidays or you're going to adjust your hours over Easter and those sort of events, is go on there, just adjust your hours and remember to go back and then just change it again. I reckon the more accurate that can be, more people are actually using it, especially if you're going to be open when others aren't.
No, it can be a huge competitive advantage because there's been different studies that show that, whether you have ads or you have like your kind of Google Maps, the times when you're open, they'll actually show you more than when the times when you're closed. So,
Yeah. Okay. What else we got?
I'd say last but not least is Google reviews. I think, we've had a number of podcasts here in the last couple of months about Google reviews, but, it used to be kind of a nice to have. They were not essential for ranking or patient trust. It was, everyone had maybe 10 or 20, and it was, people were kind of allowing them to show up when they showed up. So, maybe you would get a couple of good ones and you get that, angry patient 1 star. And you would like, wow, I don't know what to do about that. But I think a lot of clinics, the new way is that people are understanding that these star ratings, and when people see it on a Google business profile or it's showing up in different places, on different Google properties, that, a 4 or 5 star means a lot as far as building trust now. Reviews are just becoming kind of more of a mainstream thing. So the more review volume you have, and they're front and center in the search results now, it can really make or break a patient's decision to come see you or not. So the real goal now and how things have changed, you need to have a consistent process about asking happy patients at the right time for these reviews, and they're responding to all reviews, whether they're positive or negative. If you don't have this process, you're kind of falling behind. You're kind of, if you're not actively going out there and getting these reviews, you're kind of waiting for your next 1 star in a way. And then you're going to be in kind of panic mode about, oh no, like I need to get like a couple reviews in quickly to kind of make this 1 star, disappear or go down lower on the page. But if you have a consistent flow of positive reviews coming in, people are going to understand that you have a 1 negative review every 20 or 30 or 50, right? So like, just get in the habit and get it in a workflow of asking these reviews from happy patients and responding to them.
Yeah. And I think this is where I've noticed a change with the rating and reviews, is when you have someone like my mum, for example, who's 80 years of age, will comment on a business because I noticed they had a 4.7 star review. And I'm thinking, years ago, no one would even mention that. But I think more and more people, it's just a mandatory thing. You look at it. That's why when you see the business profile, you see the photos, straight away you're looking at the reviews. And if I see it's like, say it's 4.2, I'm eager to know, why is it 4.2? I will click on that and I start reading through the reviews. And some things I've noticed, the ones that tend to get a more 1 and 2 star reviews are also the businesses that don't respond to any reviews. They just don't respond to anything. And I think it's such a good opportunity to thank the people who give you a 5-star, but also an opportunity to maybe explain something that a 1-star review wasn't happy with.
No, it's a great way to show your humanity as well. Whether you can resolve that in the review or in the reply, probably not, but it's going to show you that you care, that you're not just there like kind of ignoring things, because that's what it looks like when you're not responding to negative reviews.
Yeah,
It looks like you're ignoring the patient, and that's just not a good look, and no one wants that kind of physician.
yeah, and I find it funny when you go to a business that is awesome. I mean, just awesome, and you want to rave about them, and they don't even have a business profile. They don't have a website, and you're thinking, oh my God, they're just going to rely on word of mouth. So anyway, so how we wrapping up this episode?
Yeah, before we go, I definitely feel you on that. There's so many there's so many businesses out there, and I find it more when I was in kind of when I visited Latin America or maybe Europe a bit. They just have a Facebook page, right? There's no Google
Yeah,
business profile. There's no website. It's like everything is like, I guess they didn't want to spend on the website or spend the time to figure out what a Google business
tight,
profile was, but
just tight.
it's tough being a business owner, but those are definitely worth the time investment at the least. So,
I think
yeah,
some of those things we just said about Facebook then, I think there was a period of time, probably going back a decade ago, where the influencers were going on and they were more just using Facebook and Instagram. They weren't actually having websites. They were
yeah.
just using the social media platforms, which is dangerous.
Yeah, you don't want to build your home on that foundation. You want to have your own foundation
No.
for sure.
Okay, anything else before we wrap up?
I would just kind of reiterate, the old way, like we talked about, is you had some kind of simple Google search ads and 10 blue links on that homepage. And that's the way that people saw Google. That's the way you tried to find ways with SEO to get to the top of the organic section, and maybe you paid for some ads. But it's really important to know now that you really have to diversify across all of Google's channels. It's not just those two things anymore. It's AI overviews. So you need to make sure you have top level friendly AI content. Search ads has changed in a way where you need to really know what to do on that platform to make sure that you're getting the ROI when you're doing Google search ads. There's these local service ads where, something to test out and to try. Your Google business profile is hugely important. Like I said, it's almost like a mini homepage. Then you have your, Google reviews, where you really need to kind of get a workflow and a system going to make that stuff happen. So the things you can do on Google and the opportunities there, really multiplied. And in the kind of little details about what they allow and don't allow, that's always going to change. So you really need to make sure that your clinic is adapting to these new rules and the new paradigms that Google has, because if you're not, you're probably missing out on patients, and kind of losing that opportunity to be visible to prospective patients. So, I would say, spend a little bit of time, learn about these different channels. If you have any questions, obviously reach out to myself or to Tyson. We're happy to kind of guide you through what these things are and provide some additional resources. But it's one of those things where you got to stay informed about how things are changing, because if you're trying to get those blue links and that's your entire game plan, time has passed you by.
So I like it. Just the last thing I want to say, I like it that Google keeps changing, keeps moving the goalposts, because it keeps people thinking and active in how the business is running and how it's being seen. It's not all about, just because that person had their clinic set up 5 or 10 years ago, that, I can't compete with them. If they're resting on their roles or resting on their reputation, a new person can come into the market tomorrow. And if they know how this all works, they can very quickly make up a lot of ground on someone that's been out 5, 10, 15, 20 years before them. So I actually like the idea of this.
Yeah, it can really help level the playing field.
Yeah. And I'm old and I like it. So younger people, anyone younger than me, you have no excuse. Okay, Jim. I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Sounds great, Tyson.
Okay. See you later. Bye.
Bye now.